Shirley, let's start with you, because your video was one of a few I've seen from people on the front line. Really moved me. Let's take a little look at some of it for those who haven't seen it.
If you know anyone that's going out and they don't need to, if you see groups of people, then I want you to say something to them. I want you to say you need to stay indoors and you need to stop spreading it, and people need to stop catching it, because we're on our knees here and it's really difficult. We're staying away from our families and we're putting ourselves in danger to try and save other people's loved ones.
Well, Shirley, first of all, thank you so much for all the effort that you're making for other people. It's an extraordinary sacrifice. Honestly, my admiration for the NHS was already great and is now just through the roof, as everybody's is. Let me ask you this. 39 NHS health workers are believed to have now died. What does that make you feel as you go back in every day?
I think nationally, you know, we're in a crisis, aren't we? We're something that we've never experienced before. And I'm just one of over 1 million NHS workers, and it is part of our job. We've never experienced this before. And yeah, it is scary. And I think it's natural for us to be scared. It's natural for us to feel emotional. But we've also got a huge sense of responsibility and dedication, and we're we're embracing that, and we're really digging deep at the moment. In my hospital, the staff are amazing, and I know in all the hospitals around the country, everyone is digging deep and everyone is really pushing themselves. And yes, we're fearful, and that's normal, but we're, you know, we have got a sense of responsibility, and we take it very seriously.
Intisar Chowdhury, your father was a consultant urologist at Homerton Hospital in East London.
Yes.
Abdul
Yes.
Mabud Chowdhury. He died of coronavirus last week, and I know that you the funeral was yesterday, and we're so sorry for your loss. Now, Shirley has highlighted the responsibility of the public in trying to deal with this crisis. Your father highlighted the responsibility when it comes to providing PPE for the staff working in the front line, didn't he? What did he say?
So, you know, I'll be honest with you. When my father made the post about the PPE that I'm sure hopefully you've seen, the letter to Boris Johnson, I didn't know about it because he really just did not want to convey his own fears about his own life and the lives of his co-workers to me and my sister. And when he wrote that letter, he was in such an ill state, such a painful state. It was really just hard for him. He was unable to vocally communicate with me or my sister or my mother, but he still made sure that on behalf of his co-workers and colleagues, that he would hold the government accountable for not providing enough protection for NHS frontline workers, and I am so proud of him for that.
You know, Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, says she's sorry if anybody feels like they haven't had enough PPE. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, sort of inferred that actually there's maybe too much PPE, and that may be the problem. They're wasting it. What's your reaction to those two statements?
So first of all, Priti Patel's apology is not a real apology. It's just not a real apology, 100%. She's not sorry that people feel there have been failings. There have been failings, and I've seen those failings happen. In my father's case specifically, it is not necessarily due to a lack of PPE that he contracted the virus. However, in so many cases that he saw, and in so many NHS frontline workers that have passed away, it is 100% a lack of PPE that has caused it. And the government are expecting our frontline workers, because the government aren't on the front lines, our NHS workers are, so they need to make sure that our NHS workers are properly equipped to fight this disease and to protect our society in general, because those NHS workers then have their own families that they need to protect. This is my father's message the whole time, and I'm just trying to convey that. And Matt Hancock's quote, we need everyone to treat PPE like the precious resource it is. I was speaking to my mother yesterday, my mother, Dr. Rahana Akhtar, she's a consultant psychiatrist. I was speaking to her and she was questioning, is PPE really that more precious than the lives we are trying to protect?
Can I ask you also, there's this story
Yeah.
this morning, because testing for health workers is so crucial. So many of them are being taken off the front line for 14 days of self-isolation. If a family member shows symptoms, they may not even know if they've got the virus. Turns out that Michael Gove, who was in that situation, managed to went to the chief medical officer, got a test for his daughter who had the symptoms, got the result back very quickly. It turned out she was negative, and he was then able to return to his job. What do you think of the fact that he was able to get that so easily, but for many health workers, they can't?
I think it's absolutely disappointing that our frontline workers are unable to have access to the testing facilities they need to not only protect themselves, but also protect their patients. I don't understand how you can justify that the government should be the only ones to have access to fast-track testing facilities, and that our fighters on the front line, as I keep saying, because they're literally the ones keeping our country alive. They're literally the ones keeping our government alive. They're the ones that kept Boris Johnson alive. The fact that they're not the ones able to have access to fast-track testing facilities is really disappointing, and is really a testament to how mediocre the government is being right now.
David Hepburn, you are at the Royal Gwent Hospital in Newport, and as an intensive care consultant, you are trying to keep people alive, literally every day. I know that you've found it particularly hard. What sort of patients are you treating, and what is the profile of those patients? Because I think some people might be surprised.
Well, initially the patients started off as generally quite young. The first patients we saw, we started taking patients about a month ago. And our first patient was in his late 30s. And that we've got a spread now of patients between the age of 20 and the age of about 77. But I would say the vast majority of our patients are in their 40s and 50s. We've got a couple who are in their 30s who are otherwise fit and well. So this is a disease that is not, it's not sparing anyone in the population. Everyone is at equal risk, and the one thing we don't know at the minute is quite why that is. Why someone like me, for example, should have a fairly mild infection, feel terrible for a few days, and get better, whereas there's I know a gentleman my age, similar size and build, who's desperately ill in intensive care now. So I don't think we've quite got to the bottom of how this works at a genetic level, but I would emphasise that this is something that can affect absolutely anybody.
You described Thursday as the worst shift of your life. You had to spend the last moments with a woman in her early 20s with COVID-19 and tell her parents that she was dying. I imagine her parents weren't able to be with her at that moment. I mean, I can't, as a parent, imagine anything worse in the world, and you're having to deal with this kind of situation all the time. But what was that moment like for you?
As I say, I can't go into too much detail about the case, but it came at the end of, I'd been in for already 20 plus hours since 8 o'clock that morning. It happened in the wee small hours of the morning. We'd been wearing PPE all day. We've scaled up from our first 1 or 2 patients. We've now got 40 critically ill patients on ventilators to look after. And this came on top of all of that. And it was a young person who was desperately unwell, and for various complicated reasons the family couldn't be there. And this is something we're going to see more and more and more now during this outbreak.